Hello and welcome to the show. So, apologies in advance if at any point in time it sounds like I've given up and I've started snoring, or for some reason you hear strange tongue noises or anything like that. That's not me. I haven't fallen asleep. I haven't decided to just lap my tongue at the air or anything like that. That's my dog James behind me. He's napping on the couch, and I don't really want to move him at the moment. I thought, well, look, let's just let him sleep, and look, if it becomes a problem, we'll get him out of there. We can edit any of this out later. Anyway, on with the show. So, thank you so much for anyone who listened to the last episode. I'm still undecided whether that one's going to make it up or not. At this point in time, nothing's uploaded, so we'll see how we go if that first one gets up or not. But anyway, I want to touch on something that I mentioned in the first one, which was movies of 1998. Now, I got to backpedal on this one because I did mention The Matrix in that. As a lot of you probably know already, and there's lots of you saying, like, Jesus, it's 1999, Josh. Yes, it was 1999 that came out, and that was the year I was actually talking about. In 1999, in contrast with now, the amount of movies that came out that were just original IPs was just phenomenal. But not just original IPs, I mean proper films. Things that weren't just like today where everything is like a Disney Marvel subsidiary of something like that. Back then, there was so much, with the exception of Bond and whatnot, we had so many just straight up just films of 1999. I'll list a couple of them just for perspective. Yes, I did mention The Matrix, but that same year, we got The Green Mile, we got Fight Club in there. We also got some less so good ones, some missteps along the way, like Wild Wild West, which some of you famously would know that Will Smith originally was going to be in The Matrix as Neo, but due to his commitments on Wild Wild West, which he chose to do instead, we got Keanu Reeves in The Matrix. So, look, heavens kind of step open sometimes and a miracle happens. So, yeah, I'm not saying that The Matrix wouldn't have been good with Will Smith, but I think it would have been a very, very different movie. I did want to mention Will Smith specifically, though, because I am going to come back to this with Gemini Man after. But going back through the list of films of 1999, it's just amazing how many of these films have influenced me personally. For instance, American Beauty, one of my favorite films with one of my favorite actors, Kevin Spacey. And look, I'm going to say this right now to address the elephant in the room. I'm a big advocate of judging the art separately from the artist. I think that Kevin Spacey is a fantastic actor. Say what you will about him as a person and whatnot. If you want to boycott him, go for it. I think his career is pretty much ended at this point anyway. But I think of him in terms of as an actor as being fantastic. And I think he's got a decent amount of range there too. And then we also had Deep Blue Sea the same year. Weird film. I don't think it was particularly great. I don't want to just list films and just leave it at that. But there was a couple of standout ones I wanted to mention though. There's two films in particular. I'm not going to go into The Matrix because you've either seen it, you know of it, and it's got quite a bit of clout already. So no one needs to go back into explaining The Matrix or anything like that. But I did want to mention two particular films. They're both animated as well, which they have in common. And they've both influenced me quite greatly. Back at the time when I was in early high school, I didn't see these until around 2000, 2001-ish. But back then, I was very, very much into art. And I had aspirations of being a comic book artist as well. So the films in particular was The Iron Giant, was the Western film that came out. And also Jinro the Wolf Brigade. Jinro the Wolf Brigade, which is an anime film. Now, the one I want to get into first, though, is The Iron Giant, because I watched that again recently for the first time in probably going back about 10 years now. It's been a long time since I've seen it. But The Iron Giant was one of my favorite films. And I think it still holds up very, very much so. Having seen it probably about a couple of weeks ago now, it's got some decent acting in it too, voice acting, that I just never really thought about. Like, I never thought of Harry Connick Jr., who plays, I believe, the character is Dean McCopin, the beatnik guy in the film. Fantastic performance. And I never thought of Harry Connick Jr. much more than a musician who's often was seen on the show Hey Hey It's Saturday quite a bit. And that's kind of all I thought about him. I thought of him as like a proto Michael Bublé. I didn't really think of him much else as an actor. I knew he had an acting career, and he had that. I don't remember what that film was. The one where he licks the knife though, and he's a serial killer or something like that. So I knew he did have a bit of an acting career. But yeah, this was fantastic. It also has another actor you guys might know as well, Christopher McDonald. As some of you guys will know him as Shooter McGavin from the Happy Gilmore film. But yeah, there's a lot in this film I completely forgot about. Everyone knows that Vin Diesel voiced the Iron Giant, and I think that's a really throwaway kind of thing too, because I feel like his voice has got like a filter over it and stuff, similar to Groot in the Marvel films, that I don't think it really matters that it's Vin Diesel doing the voice, or anyone really. It could be. I don't think it really adds anything to the film. But hey, it's a bit of trivia there for you guys who didn't know that. But the other film though was an anime I saw, and it's kind of funny because I stumbled onto this one just by circumstance. And I really mean that, but just by chance. There was a film that was playing on a channel that we had, is SBS in Australia, which is often it's like a multicultural kind of government sort of independent channel that has lots of media on it. A lot of stuff that's like languages other than English and all sorts of things, which is kind of cool. It's a good place to see different movies from like foreign films and whatnot. But every so often, I think it was Tuesdays or something, they would have anime on there. They'd have Ghost in the Shell, and they also had a Standalone Complex, and they also had Neon Genesis was on there as well. But there was this film that was on there, and it wasn't Jinro. It was something else. And I remember it had lots of snow in it, and there was guys shooting and all sorts of stuff, and a compound, and guys in weird armor and things. And I tried to research it, and still to this day, I don't even remember what it was, and it's not really relevant. It could be anything, to be honest. My memory's pretty cloudy back then too. But I saw this, and I wanted to know what it was, and with my limited internet search skills and whatnot, I ended up finding Jinro the Wolf Brigade, because it looked to me from some of the screenshots of it like it was somewhat similar. And I ended up just buying this anime movie, and I just fell in love with it from there. It's a very strange movie. It's kind of hard to sort of explain this without spoilers or anything like that. So it's probably a bit of a misstep to mention this on the podcast, but I do want you to go out and have a look at it though, because I think it is worth having a look at. Keep in mind, it has been a long time since I've personally watched it as well, so it might not hold up as good as I remember, but I figure being animated, these kind of things tend to hold up a lot better than live action or anything like that. And it was animated pretty decently as well. But basically, it's set in an alternate history Japan, and it's got a special sort of police unit in there as well. And it's set in the 50s, I believe, with these big Japanese riots and whatnot. But essentially, it boils down to a love story, I believe, between this guy who's been basically built to be a weapon through the military and whatnot that they have there, and through their policing. And he ends up falling in love with this girl, and this big rift between them. And yeah, like I said, it's hard to sort of articulate this film because it's got so many layers to it, and I think that there's a lot in this film to really unpack, and it is worth really going into it. So I think that this would be a good candidate for a real deep dive to sort of dissect this film in, but that's not really what I wanted to get into today. It was more about the contrast of 1999 compared to, say, 2011, for instance. So I had a look through the releases of 2011, and it's straight up just like the cinemas have turned into what seems to be like a Disney complex for the most part. And look, I got nothing against Disney. I got nothing against Marvel and DC films and all those different comic book franchises and so on. And I said earlier that I did aspire to be a comic book artist at one stage as well, back when I was drawing a lot. And yeah, this did appeal to me at one stage, but it's gotten to this point where every year has been like this. Ever since that first Iron Man film came out, every year has just been comic book movie after comic book movie, and I'm kind of fatigued from it. There were some exceptions in there, though. I did see a gem that came out of this. And look, it's not a fantastic film, but for one reason I say to watch it is the acting in it completely. and this is Will Smith's role in Gemini Man. It's a pretty basic film, and the real structure of it is Will Smith is a aging hitman type guy, works for an agency and he does wet work kind of jobs, and he wants to get out of it. He's sick of it. It's scarred him. It's damaged him as a person, and he just thinks about the life that he used to, or the life that he missed out on. He never got to have a normal life. He couldn't have a family or anything like that, and it sort of just took away his youth and left him just being this, like I said with the other film, like a weapon by the end of it, and unrelatable to other people. But now he's grown up and matured. He just wants out of it and to retire and just do something non-death related. But they send out a hitman after him, and the hitman, it's like that catch to catch the world's best killer, you need another killer. And because he was the best, they clone him. And they send a younger Will Smith after him, a 25-year-old one, after the 51-year-old Will Smith. Now, the narrative in it is pretty basic. There's a lot of things in this film that don't really work, but the real thing that really sells this to me, from an acting perspective, Will Smith absolutely nails it. And the range that he shows playing the 25-year-old version of him, it's not even the VFX that really make that. The VFX are good with the de-aging. They're pretty good. It's like a deep fake filter that they've put over it. But it's just the performance that he really nails it, that vulnerability that he gets out. And it really shows that he's tapping into maybe this place that he was when he was that age as well. And I just thought that was amazing. I've always seen Will Smith as a decent actor, and he's sort of chosen roles that, reflect it's kind of like how Tom Cruise has his roles, which he tends to pick quite carefully as Tom Cruise roles. Likewise, Will Smith picks Will Smith roles. But once in a while, something like this shines out and you realize, wow, he actually is a proper actor. He's not just the bad boys guy. Yeah, he's actually done some things that are fantastic. So that's a film that I saw relatively recently that came out last year. I didn't want to mention this year being 2020 because it's been a pretty slow year for films with this COVID-19 pandemic as well. So I don't think it's really fair to talk about films launched this year. But yeah, there were a couple of other original films. There was Alita Battle Angel as well that came out, which is a pretty cool sci-fi film. And I did notice there was another original film too that came out, which was Guns Akimbo. And I've got nothing to say about it because I haven't seen it yet. It's a Daniel Radcliffe one where he just wakes up with guns bolted to his hands or something like that. That's about all I know about it. And I haven't seen any service where this is available to actually see it. So I'll have to do some research. I didn't want to pirate it or anything like that, but yeah, that's something I definitely got to get around to. In terms of other releases as well, I've been trying to get back into some TV shows. I did watch Man in the High Castle and I absolutely loved it. There were some parts of it where I thought, oh, this is kind of going downhill. So for those who don't know, Man in the High Castle is a television series that you can watch on Amazon Prime at the minute. All 4 seasons are out now and the show has concluded. It is done. It's got a finite ending and that's a wrap on that one. The premise of it is it's set in, I believe, the 60s in America. And basically what's happened is instead of the Second World War ending the way it did in our current timeline, this is set in a parallel universe where instead of the Allies winning the war, the Germans developed the nuclear bomb first and launched it on DC. And essentially the Americans were taken over and the Germans split the United States into 2 nations, which is the Reich, which is the German side, and then the Japanese Pacific States, which is the Japanese occupied area. And in the center of the Americas, as I guess they are now, there is a neutral zone between. And the story takes place between 3 different, or not even 3, but many different characters in here. You've got in the America side of it, you have John Smith, who is the German Obergruppenführer as well, who runs that side of things. And you expect him to sort of be the prime villain. And he's ends up being a far more complicated character than you'd expect. But I don't really want to go too far into that either, because it is a very spoiler heavy show as well. It's one of those shows where, yes, it is 4 seasons, but after about 4 episodes or so, you're kind of getting into some pretty deep spoilers into it, because there's a lot to really get into in that. There's so many elements of that story which really hinge on you not knowing, and it really is fantastic at world building. But my favorite part of all of it, really, it comes down to one of my favorite tropes, I guess you call it, in any kind of storytelling. And that's when you've got a character who believes in something and have dedicated their life to it, but then something changes, some element's different in their life that doesn't really go with this thing that they've invested into, and they realize that, oh, well, maybe I've made a mistake. Maybe this organization or this ideology that I've set my life to, maybe I was wrong about it. And I think that's such a powerful story as well, because for a lot of us, that happens in our lives. We cling to these things that we think that we believe in. And when you start to challenge your beliefs on these things, you realize that, well, maybe I don't believe in this anymore. It's a good question. You should ask yourself that too. Think about anything that you think that you believe in, anything that you think that you want, or you have wanted, or you aspire to achieve, or aspire to get, and really ask yourself, why? Why do I want this? And really, when you get those answers back, ask yourself why you feel that way, why you chose that answer. And I'll tell you what, when you start deconstructing things like that and you really start soul searching, you tend to realize that a lot of the things that you thought you wanted, they weren't even your thoughts to begin with. It was a social thought that was put onto you through a societal construct, or it was through parenting. It was through someone telling you that this is what you should want. This is what you should aspire to. It's something that you've learned in school to enjoy because you think it's worth enjoying. You could even, I don't want to ruin this for other people and tell people that their dreams are wrong, because that's up to you. Your dreams are what you want them to be. And I guess that's what I am saying, is that believe what you want to believe, but really make sure it is what you want. Because a lot of the things that people think they want, it's things that people want for them. Give an example of that. A lot of people think that they want to go to university, they want to study this, they want to study that, and they want to go and get a degree and work in this industry and so on. But have a look at yourself when you're in that age, because you're generally what, like 18? You've got no life experience. You just come out of school, and then you think that you're going to make this decision for the next, 15 years that's going to define what you're going to do and how you're going to live your life. And it's such a staggering idea to think that you would know that by then. You know nothing. I'm in my 30s and I know nothing now. It seems like that anyway. And I really started thinking about all these things. It's like, okay, well, why do you want to buy a house? Is it something that you aspire to? Why are you not happy renting? Why do you want to work in this job? Is this something you want to do with your time? Does this bring you joy? Why do you go to church? Why are you an atheist? Why do you choose to believe in this one thing? Why do you choose not to believe in something? You need to have that answer of why. Because if you can't answer that, nobody else is going to answer that for you. So anyway, after that deep rant, I want to get back to TV shows, because I have been, and I'm aware that this is a drastically inconsistent tone right now to flip over to. but I have been watching a couple of shows lately. One in particular, I started watching The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and tell you what, first impression, loved it. Absolutely loved that show. I thought it was fantastic. In hindsight, don't like it at all. I'll explain why in a second. I know that doesn't make any sense, but yeah, fantastic show. The actress in it, I believe her name is, forgive me if I get this wrong, Kiernan Shipka, I believe her name is. Absolutely kills it as Sabrina. She was in Mad Men, I believe, as well. Yeah, fantastic show. And I think that, yeah, this Sabrina's first season is really, really strong. Nails the tone, and it's has this really kind of dark coming of age type story to it as well. I really enjoyed that. And I like the new way that they present it instead of being like, there's a few cool things I like that are consistent throughout the whole show. My favorite thing is it takes place in this almost what's the term for it? Like I can't put my finger on it, but there's an aesthetic to this show. It's like almost like a 50s chic type thing, but it's not, because it's meant to take place in current day, but it could take place anytime from like 1950 to 20 years from now, because there's so many just weird things where they don't show cars, they don't show any technology like phones or anything like that, but they have conventional shops and things. And but then there's like weird, like kitschy stuff like comic book shops and whatnot. And but then they've got like modern day electric guitars and things, so it's all over the place. So it's this really kind of yeah, this really weird aesthetic, and I love that about it. I think it looks really cool. There is a couple of things I don't like though. There's this stylistic effect, and it looks like almost like a tilt shift photography type filter that they've got on things, or this lens that they use on the camera, and it basically has a really weird focus on it. It's almost like the foreground is out of focus, the background's out of focus, but the focal point isn't the center of the shot. So you'll have like characters in screen who are talking, and you would normally have the camera, say, focused on like the hero of the shot who's actually speaking, and then have the other character maybe out of focus or whatnot. But in Sabrina, I noticed that neither character's often in focus, and it's just like a random object that's in focus to try and, I think it's meant to sort of create this weird aesthetic where it's in a sort of hyper fantasy-ish kind of reality world. But I don't know, it just makes it look like occasionally it blends in, and it's okay in the Dark Academy and so on where they go to for witch school. But I think it kind of falls apart when you see it just in the normal life. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but just me personally, it just looks like the focus is just off. It looks like an autofocus, or there's crap on the lens, or like it's just not focusing on the right thing, and I find it frustrating to watch sometimes. But the big thing is that fell apart for me on this show is the first season, like I said, awesome, really, really strong, loved it, love all the characters. What I don't like though is when it gets to season two, it almost feels like halfway into season two, they've run out of ideas, or the scriptwriters have changed, or they only wrote half a screenplay to kind of get through the pitch for this season. But then when they started filming it, they're kind of just, flying by the seat of their pants at the same time, and it just doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. I wasn't happy with the conclusion of season two either. And then season three, the tone change is dramatic in it, and it just feels like it feels not bad, but it feels like I'm not the target audience for this show. It feels a lot like this is not for me. It's very sort of teen or tween even. I guess it's similar to like, say, Riverdale or something like that, which is, it's set in the same universe, so you'd expect that. But yeah, just not my thing. So I want to go into games now, because I said this last time that I'm in a bit of a slump with games. So I've been jumping on DOSBox and having a look online, and there's a few decent places in browser where you can check out some DOS games. And I've been checking out these old... Do you remember those old Hugo games? They came out on like... It was like a shareware title or something like that, but they they're very much like those old Sierra RPGs that you play, the ones where you got to type in, pick up pen. But the UI of these is exactly the same as well, but it's very, very, I guess cooked is the only way to really put it. Because they feel like a fan game and they feel very indie, the puzzles tend to not make sense, and the things, because you've got to type in stuff. It's not like a conventional LucasArts RPG or adventure game, I should say, where you can just navigate with a mouse to pick something up. You've got to pick an object up off the floor, but when you try and pick it up, some of the commands on it, like one of them is you've got to make, I think in Hugo 3 it was, when you're in the jungles, you've got to make a voodoo doll, and the whole puzzle on this is just nuts, and I'll do a playthrough at some point in future and you guys can see this firsthand because it's just ridiculous. But at no point am I going to see this like multi-pixel thing sitting on the ground and say pick up effigy. At no point was that a logical choice. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, they're some of the most frustrating things ever. And they've got that same King's Quest problem, like those old what's her name, Roberta, what's her name, RPGs from Sierra back in the day, with like King's Quest and so on, where you can miss an item really early on, and you just can't get past a certain point. Well, Hugo goes one step further in Hugo 2, which is ridiculous. You pick up matches at one point, as in matches that the ones you light by hand. And you think, oh yeah, I'll use them later on, and you do. So the character Penelope that you play as, she puts them in her pocket, but there's a bridge, and at no point would you know this, but as you walk across the bridge, the matches just fall out of your pocket into the water. You can pick them up again, but then like towards the end of the game, like an hour later, you need to use the matches, but the matches are forever soaked. Can't use your matches, and that's the end of that. You can't play through. It's ended. And it's just nuts that it doesn't tell you this. It doesn't tell you that the matches are wet at any point. There's no way that walking over that bridge that you would know. And here's the thing that's even like more crazy. The way that you stop the matches from getting wet is to put catnip in your pocket that you pick from a field, which just looks like the background, which I guess the logic in that is the matches are in her pocket. She puts the catnip over the matches, I guess, which hold it in her pocket. It doesn't make sense! This is ridiculous! Oh, it does my head in, those kind of puzzles. Speaking of games too, I'm going to do a playthrough of this one, but I just want to mention it now because of how just ridiculous the concept of this is. But I was having a chat to a mate going back a long time ago when I was in high school. I used to be... I don't know if any of you guys remember this. I know some of you would know this currently with... So Mobile Suit Gundam and Gundam Wing and all those Gundam Japanese anime mecha shows, they have toys that kind of... their toy line that go through with it. And you've got these... they're like snap-together models where there's no glue or anything like that required. And you just put them together and you make your Gundam, and they come in various different ones. So you've got like master grade, which is your awesome type ones, and you've got high grades, and then you've got like your crap tier grade. I can't remember what they're called, but they're like a smaller one and more rudimentary. And I went to I think it was a Toys R Us or a Toy World. This is going way back into early 2000, and I saved up all my money that I got from birthdays and whatnot, and I was dying to go buy this master grade Gundam Epion. And I got to the toy shop. Dad dropped me there, and he went to the library. He just dropped me off, and I went to go pick that up. And I remember just this conflict I had, this massive conflict, because I saw in the bargain bin that they had there at the checkout. I don't even know how to describe this, but it was. Do you remember back in the day you could get those like desktop things? And like for your computer, and it was like a desktop suite that you could buy. So like it's in software, and you install it, and it comes with just like new sound effects for your start bar and turning on and off their computer and whatnot. but it was a Frasier home office suite that you could buy, as in the NBC Frasier show. And I remember looking at it and thinking, oh my God, I need this. And it was exactly the same cost as what that Gundam cost. And to this day, I still regret not getting it because even searching for that is difficult now. I found one copy of it on Amazon and they want like God tier money for it. That's I want it, but I don't want to pay like that much money for it. It was like $70 US or something like that, which is just nuts for, and then like pre-shipping. I know that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but that's insane for what it is. But I do want that box. It looked amazing. And I was telling my mate about this when we were having a chat over the live stream. And as I was just searching for it, I stumbled upon something else. I ended up stumbling upon this Frasier RPG, and it's amazing. I did want to mention it now because I promise you this is going to get a playthrough. It's too good not to be shared with the world, and I'll save you all having to download this and subjecting your computer to God knows what came in that zip file. But it's called Frasier's Rampage. Feel free to Google it. I mean, the download seemed like it was safe, but it was from like the sketchiest site that I downloaded it from. So don't worry, we'll go through it together. But that was a fun one to go through. It's something that it's just every part of it just screams Frasier, but it's just slightly off, and just the animation style is just ridiculous. And it's a game that should exist on like a big, I wish it was made on a big scale, like a Sam and Max Hit the Road type Telltale adventure, but Frasier. Oh man, that would be the best. Oh, also with games, I wanted to ask you guys, do you know any good multiplayer games that are similar to The Forest or something like that? Something that, I don't want to get into Ark or anything like that, but something like The Forest where you've got like a kind of mild survival element, but there's building in it as well. Something that's team oriented, because I've got some friends, I want to play on console at the minute. My computer's definitely not up to this. In time, yeah, I'd love to get into something else on PC, but not really on the cards with my current setup. But yeah, if you guys know anything similar to that, I would absolutely love to hear about it. I have heard of Green Hell, which is coming out, and there's that other one called Stranded Deep, which looks exactly what I want, but there's no multiplayer on console for it. I've got a PS4, so that's what I'm looking to get it on. But look, if you guys know anything, that would be amazing. Now, onto some more personal things. I was going to let you guys in on something too. So I've had a couple of these for a while, little Mazda MX-5s, NA. I've got an NA6, I had a 1990 and I've got a 1991, and it is currently turbocharged. Some of you guys will know it already as being a ridiculous turbo 1.6 thing, which makes a decent amount of power. But I had an accident a while ago, and I'm definitely not going to go into that. But like, I've got the car, it's got some decent front end damage, but it's not beyond being salvaged. So I can fix it. It's got a bit of a bend in the front of it, but I'm going to organize once things sort of change with this, with the lockdowns and whatnot. Then I'll get it assessed and we'll start having a look at pulling that front end straight. If not cutting that front part out of it. Nothing structural is damaged, I won't mention that. But yeah, we'll have a look at getting that fixed. But something I did want to mention with that is what I want to do with it. Yeah, I am going to fix it, but I want to actually go back to standard. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be wondering why, because it was this silly, like, 150 kilowatt or something like that, turbocharged, Nissan Silvia powered T28 turbo setup. It was great. And look, I had a lot of fun on it. It was really peaky, and I think I was, it was like 14 pounds or something like that I was running at one point, and it would shoot up to it pretty quickly, running on a Mega Squirt 2 ECU on it. Beautiful setup. And look, it ran awesome. But here's the thing. It kind of ran too awesome. Now, I know some of you are going to be scratching your head and thinking, what do you mean too awesome? MX-5s are slow. Yes, they are slow. You know what? A great way to sort of explain it
is, I think, using childhood as a sort of analogy for it. So, look, when you're a kid, things are just fun. You don't have any responsibilities, and the downside to not having responsibilities is you don't have access to things. You don't really have freedom to things. You don't have the ability to choose what you want to do, but you make do with what you got. And whatever you're given from your parents or whoever's looking after you, or whatever guardian you've got, you make do with it. You make your own fun. If you're not someone who had a lot of toys, then use your imagination. You go out there and you play with your stick and your rock or your action figures or whatever it is, and you just, have a crack at it, and everything is great. You go out in your BMX and have some fun as well and do some jumps and whatnot, and you just do what kids do. And that's the thing. It doesn't have to be serious. But when you get older, you get a lot more opportunities. But the problem with opportunity is that it comes with responsibility with it too. Everything becomes more serious. Yes, I can go out and get a hamburger whenever I want to. I can't do that as a kid. I can go off and drive to a playground or whatnot and do whatever I want. I mean, that sounds weird, but but talking from a kid's perspective, you don't have the ability to do those things. But here's the thing. As an adult, I have to work a job so I've got money so I can do those things, so I can put that petrol in my car, so I can buy my car, so I can drive somewhere, so I can do that. And so I can get my hamburger. I've got to actually have, money and responsibilities that come with that. Whereas when you're a kid, it's just those responsibilities don't exist and things are just sort of fun and you can do whatever you want to. And that's kind of where I felt with the MX-5, is that with the turbo setup, it became very, very peaky and very difficult to sort of, not difficult to drive, but it really felt like okay, strap yourself in. This is a serious thing you're getting into. This is very racy. This is quick. This is very twitchy in the back end, and you've got to have your wits about you when you're driving it. I mean, some of you probably think I'm exaggerating, and some of you guys who are better drivers than me will laugh at that and say, well, not for me, it isn't. And great, if that works for you, awesome. I thought it worked for me for a long time, until I drove a standard one again, and then I realized, oh my god, yeah, this isn't fast. And yeah, it's not the greatest performing car out there, but you know what it is? It is fun, and I had more fun in that dead standard car than I had in mine, and it kind of broke my heart in a way, and I made me realize maybe I ruined mine. So you know what? When I rebuild this, all that stuff is coming off it, going back to just a standard 1.6 on standard engine, standard everything else. Because when I think about all the times where I had fun with that car, all the memories I've got were all before I turboed it. When I was driving back from Canberra in it on that long way home through all the twisty roads, when I took my friend Samantha for a drive and we went through some back roads and it was just in the standard MX-5 with coilovers, and I had a blast with it, driving around a roundabout and just throwing it around. When I was with my friend James and he came down from Queensland and we just took it for a drive and we took it through some twisty roads, and I remember the 1.6 engine just revving off its head and had some pretty average tires on it which were just squealing in the background. It sounded like we were doing 1,000,000 miles an hour, but honestly we were probably doing 40 k's, and it just sounded like we were going so fast. I had more fun then, and I think about the memories I've had when it's turbo and I have none. Like honestly, none of the memories where I had fun in that car were ever since I modified it. And I think objectively, I made it a better car. Objectively, in every way. Drives so much better, it handles better, it pulls better, it's more economic too, strangely enough. But it's just not fun anymore. I think what changed that for me was when I got a bike. Because when I got a bike, it was just something that was just, like, I know this phrase gets misused a lot, that perfect from factory, but it really was. When I got my CBR, it was just, or any of my bikes really, I just got on them and there's nothing really to modify aside from gearing, and that's pretty much it. And just got on them and had fun, and working at just being a better rider, and any kind of compromise that the bike had, any kind of handling fault it had that I couldn't, fix because it was inherently part of the bike, I decided, well, let's not fix this thing mechanically. Let's just work on the software instead of the hardware, and just work on your own skills to become better at this. So I did, and I got better and better at riding. And look, by no means am I a fantastic motorcyclist or anything like that. I'm not trying to talk myself up, but it's not the approach I took with the MX-5. And I kind of want to go back to that. I want to go back to the fun. And in a way, I think that it's my one chance of really trying to redeem my passion for cars as well. Because ever since I got into bikes, I'm on my third one now, and it's like something changed one day. I'm just not as interested in cars anymore. And I guess that's fine, but it's just strange that so many of my relationships that I've had with people have all been related to cars and car culture and people I've met through vehicles. And it's great. And I've made some friends through bikes as well, but it's just such a large chapter of my life. Like we used to go to this place called Garage Cafe to catch up and have tea and coffee and whatnot. Tea is in like as in eating dinner, I mean. And although you could order tea as well there if you wanted to. And having coffees and just catch ups with people at this place. It was rad too. It was like an old mechanics shed that was in Melbourne near the uni, and it was so cool because this whole workshop had been gutted, but they left all the place where you could park your cars in there. They turned one corner of it into a kitchen, and then put on one side of the place some tables and whatnot. But you could actually park in there, so you essentially were driving your car into a restaurant, parking it there with all these other people who are car enthusiasts, presumably, and then just chilling at a table. And it really built a community. Ever since that place closed, it was kind of like, I guess part of my life felt like it closed off as well. It was really sad. I know a lot of us feel that way about that. Garage Cafe was more than just a restaurant. It was like a gateway into that culture and that community. And it was beautiful. And maybe that's the start of it. Maybe it wasn't bikes. Maybe it was Garage Cafe closing that sort of dry up that community and killed off some of that enthusiasm. But I think getting into bikes and just working on being a better motorcyclist, and because it's such a solitary thing as well, me personally, I hardly ever ride with other riders, and I've had bad experiences with watching people have accidents and whatnot. So I tend to not want to ride with other people. I'd rather ride by myself and just, have emergency contacts notified if anything goes wrong, and take my own responsibility to go at my own pace, however slow or fast that might be. But anyway, I got some questions for you guys though. I did mention on the last one, the last show, that I did want to get back into comics again, particularly more graphic novels and one shots. Don't know if I'm really keen to do like a big long haul like Walking Dead again, but with Walking Dead, I absolutely loved it. I love the art style. A couple of comics that I also liked as well. Say what you will about The Killing Joke. I thought it was alright. It was a fun read. I don't think it's a fantastic or it's like the best comic or anything like that out there. But I think it's worth reading though. I had a lot of fun reading that. Same with Batman Year One as well. And what was the other comic I was going to mention as well? Oh yeah, Punisher War Journals and so on. And I want something that's sort of in the style of any of those. So if you guys know anything like that, definitely let me know because I would love to hear about it and jump back into it. And there is another comic book too that I really want you guys to find for me because I've searched for this and I haven't been able to find it. Now, it's this comic book it's a satire about really alcoholism and stuff, and it's got a lot of commentary on that. And it's about this superhero who has like a huge alcoholic issue, and he's part of like an Avengers type Justice League type thing. And he's basically like a Superman type guy. But he's got such a crippling alcohol addiction that he ends up messing things up and he ends up ruining his relationships with people, and he has a bad anger complex as well and ends up hurting physically as well some of the people around him as well, and then turning to crime out of desperation. And I've tried so hard to find that graphic novel and I can't find it for the life of me. I've been searching for it for ages because I really want to reread it. I found another one, but that's not that. So if you guys know what that is, please let me know. I would love to know and read that again because that was so amazing. Um, but yeah, look, I think that's a good place to leave things off there. And we'll have a chat next time. So thank you everyone for listening in and have a wonderful time until I hear from you again, or you hear from me, really. Catch you guys later. Bye.